Genesis 30:25 30 through 34, and 41 through 43. It's about blessed. It's anytime in the Old Testament, you read about these people. When I read about them, I try to put my place in, or put me in Jacob's place or Laban's place to try to really figure out or what they're thinking or what they're doing. And Laban or Jacob is a fairly young man when he gets there, and Laban kind of takes advantage of him for almost 20 years, as a matter of fact. But Jacob did some deception before he got there, so he's kind of reaping that. But blessed is what the lesson is about, and it starts. It's on your page 55, I think it is. But anyway, Thomas Chisholm was born in 1866 near Franklin, Kentucky. Because of health problems, he alternated between periods of gainful employment and times of illness. Over time, he worked in the fields of teaching, journalism, insurance, and evangelism. Through all his up and downs, though, Thomas focused on the new blessings he received from the Lord each morning, which is why he based the words of his timeless hymn, "Great is thy faithfulness," on Lamentations 3:22-23. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The patriarch experienced spiritual highs and lows as well. Through these experiences, he learned that the Lord is always faithful. Let's open it this morning in prayer and thank the Lord for being faithful to us as we go through life. Lord, thank you so much for the blessings that you bestow on us, Lord, and for the blessings that you've bestowed on this church and on our nation, Lord. And let us not take them for granted, but, Lord, let us show people who you are, why you are, and why we worship you. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. But you ask yourself, what is a blessing? What do we talk about when we talk about blessing? Blessing is a thread that runs throughout Genesis. It's people are blessed. It talks about blessing. When someone sneezes, we say, "God bless you." When we sit down and pray over our food, we bless the food and bless it to our bodies and our bodies to His service. So, what does that really mean? What is a blessing? What do you think of when you think about God bestowing a blessing on you? And why does He do that? Why would He bless us? He blesses us so that we may bless others. And that when people see God blessing us, then they want to be part of it, and they want God's blessing also. That's the reason for the whole Old Testament, really, is why God started, or why God chose the Jews to be His people, is so that they would shine for the other nations, and the other nations would want to be like them. And that's for God having a chosen people at that time. And the reason there's always a remnant, no matter what or what happens, always a remnant of grace and God's salvation that will restart the world and respark the understanding of Him. I did copy the hymn down that I wrote, and it will on that. But anyway, it says, "It's thy faithfulness, God my Father, there's no shadow from thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not, as thou hast been, thou will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand is thy Lord. Winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, stars, and courses, join with all and manifold thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Pardon for sin, and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow, blessings mine with 10,000 beside. You know, Trent was preaching this morning about Jesus resurrected. He restored who had died him 3 times. You that and you think about it, he will always restore us no matter what. And the Old Testament, New Testament just been the Old Testament. The Old Testament kind of explains the New Testament in a way. But to give it the context, in Genesis 28, Jacob was forced to leave home. He had wronged his brother Esau, and Esau found out about it, and he said, I'm going to kill him. So he said, well, and his mother told him, says you better get out of here. So he left, and then he went to a place. He encountered the Lord at Bethel. You know, he laid down on sleep. He saw the state of heaven. God made promises at that time, and the promises was that He's going to give him that he's sleeping. And then he got up and he returned on kept on his journey to Padam Aram, which is Syria. That's the area. Look at him to figure out what he was doing and where he was going. He was going to Syria and seeking his mother's people so that he might find a bride there, or that they would protect him. Maybe is what he was looking for at that time, because he didn't know whether Esau would be coming out, would be happening. But anyway, and upon a well close there, met Rachel and fell in love. Of course, Rachel was Laban's daughter, and Laban was his brother. So it was a family. Agreed to work with Laban for 7 years, because he loved Rachel. He wanted Rachel for his wife. He kind of went around him and gave Leah to him as a bride. And he said, wait a minute. When he got the next day, he said, wait a minute, what's wrong? And of course, Laban told him, you know, the country, you can't marry off your daughter. You got to get the oldest one. He said, okay, I'll work another 6 years for Rachel. And he did. Of course, in the meantime, his son Leah, and he worked for Laban a total of 20 years for his wives, 6 years for his flock. During that, Jacob became very wealthy. He amassed a lot of animals, a lot of slaves or people that worked for him. The way people earned their living back then is they got with somebody and just started working for them. But anyway, of course, much of it came at the expense of Laban. He kind of got Laban in the end, but eventually Jacob realized that Laban's attitude toward him had changed. He felt like he better go ahead and get out while he can. After 2 days, he was ready to the final part of to return to his land. We go back to your land, go possess it, go that land, and he did. And the patriarch deceptively left with his family, herds, and possessions. He was ready to go tell Laban, because he thought Laban would stop him, kill him, or whatever at that time. Because, he thought that Laban, when he did, all Laban was using him for his own good, as felt like. And of course, Laban took off, and when he got there, he blessed his children, his grandchildren, and returned home. And meanwhile, Jacob turned his attention to Canaan and facing his brother. He had to make peace with his brother, but really have peace in the land that he was going to, as it was. But anyway, the idea of a blessing is what we're talking about. Verse 20, 30, after raising Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so I can go back home. Now home, give me my wives and children for whom I served you. Be on my way. You know how I've done for you." But Laban said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please say, I have learned divination that the Lord had blessed me because of you." He added, "Name and I will pay." Jacob said to him, "You know how for you. Now your livestock has fared under my care. So you had before increased, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But may I do something? But now may I do something in my own household?" In other words, Jacob says, "I've made you wealthy. I don't have anything, other than my children." He said, "Just let me go." And now the about divination, witchcraft, talking about, you would think that you wouldn't have to rely on witchcraft to figure out that Jacob had really done him a great service by making him very wealthy, is what it is. But that's the practice that God didn't want and doesn't want. It talks about it in the Old Testament. He condemns it in the Old Testament and the New Testament also, and it's the source of it, and demonic is the reason that he does that. They had several things that they would do, and now I think do not and sometimes do. They would take a quiver of arrows and shake them up and then throw them out, and that they kind of which direction to go for enemies, and they did like. Of course, there's a lot of stories in the Bible about it. One of them was where Paul thought, out of one of the girls that they were used to predict the future, and all. They didn't like it, and they would kill him, but it didn't work out that. But anyway, that's what he was, and that's something he really on. But anyway, Jacob is, he says, okay, but had a dream about spotted animals and speckled animals and the darker animals, and a dream about it. So he was going to use that to his way, he wanted to do. But, how did you, here's Jacob, his family, two of his daughters, several grandchildren. But how do you describe the relationship between Laban? It was a love relationship, the way I read it. Laban was using Jacob, and he used Jacob, I think. Says that wages, Jacob said he changed, and one of the things that he told him that wages times that once he's making a little bit here, then Laban would change his wages to he wouldn't be making, or that's kept blessing him and adding everything. Of course, what he was doing, he was increasing Laban's fortune. He was also increasing some of his. It mostly was who was the relationship, and it seemed like that Jacob had a place to live. I mean, he wasn't. It didn't. Laban hated him, loved him, just used him. Anyway, he says that As Laban's son, you might expect a warm relationship, but the implication Laban considered servant son-in-law, and of course, by over his flock, he was blessed, and of course, it's how God's raise a person's expectation for the future. Blessing you. Even was blessing also. The kind of, as you go, it kind of multiplies under the present column. Doing a this is 34 said, asked Jacob, he said, what will I give you? He asked. Jacob, don't give me anything, but if you will do one thing for me, I will go your flock for them. Go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckle or spot, every lamb, every spotted or speckled goat. It will be my way. Honesty will be for me, and whenever you check the wages you have in my possession that is speckled or any lamb dark colored or stolen. Agreed, said Laban. Let it be as you have said. Then what did he do? You know, it's not written in. Got his son. Every sheep, colored lamb, every spotted speckled goat, and take them out of her herd and move them at least away from it. And went out. These were not normal animals. Normally they weren't born speckled or spotted, anything like that. You know, aberration or whereas they respect these animals. And anyway, when to get them, they were gone. They weren't. They told him or something. Yeah, I don't know how. I've never out exactly. Anyway, he got sticks and down and in the water. They watered and be there, were mated there, and the ones that were born from them were either speckled or spotted. Or and he started was away from breeding, and so his great priest, you know, he had more animals, he had more animals, didn't die, so they increased greatly. They did, and so anyway, he kind of got a little bit of Laban at that time, and like I say, you have to about Laban's at all. I mean, I don't think he can Jacob anything other than servant, and of course is that Rebecca's and father granted Rebecca to remove. Okay, I'm not going to get. That's talking about when Rebecca married Isaac. It's talking about, but my wife designates one for the services. The related verb can refer to hiring an army to deliver enemies, or hiring a skill for specific. 38 term is rendered rewarded. Literally, laid that God their wages, reference to the burden. God never servants; they work loving, but like that the Lord is with a son. She kept having sons and kept thinking make Jacob love her, and I'm sure he did in his own. But in his agreement with Laban, specified that sheep was to be speckled, while his lambs would be colored. Goats and sheep were usually the opposite of what Jacob requested. Laban could not exception. He belonged to Jacob, gave them to his son, distant Jacob. Laban, in this matter, in fact, was a great advantage to him and of doubtful value to Jacob. Laban, and then Laban said, well, wait a minute, boy, that sounds great, because not very many of them are born speckled, and there's not a lot of sheep out there. Practically everyone was white, so it would have been an advantage, but kind of Jacob or what he did, and Jacob wages it to Genesis 30, 41, 43 said, whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs of the front of the animals so they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. Weak animals went and Jacob. This way the man was exceedingly prosperous and came to own flocks, female and male, and donkey. Longer says this Hebrew word that is in history to or tie. For example, it appears in Joshua 2:18, where the eyes and struck scarlet cord of her life conquered Jericho. The word also occurs in Deuteronomy. Commanded his word falls on their head. People could also be bound together in close relationship with one another. The Genesis 4:30, the verse closely bound up and depends closely with his son. Be restricted, it can also strength. Genesis 42, the term conveys the concepts of being strong, robust, vigorous. Animals were the best flocks Jacob was managing. In other words, he was now getting the best as well. Might have been spotted or black sheep, so they were getting the best he was doing. And the male Hebrew word can be slaves. This is slaves involved right, sometimes position. All at least Israel is to see a king designated, and such as Moses and Joshua were recognized as Lord's servants, a position of honor. The most significant use appears references to the Messiah as a servant. But when we ask, you think, and it was taught the all are faithful about that, and the other that he had will have up and down lives. But times I period, and you have some that you've been here quite. I don't think when you were a teenager and you 30, your children, the job you had, the people associated with, and the blessings that owed. Life is not always great. Sometimes it's hard, but you serve a risen Savior that when it is, that we him, and he will reach down and pick us up. And so when we read about things and we read character in Genesis and tells and then they didn't have paved highways, cars, and vans, and a lot of place to play trains. You know, they were pretty well on their own. And what they had in the world is what they made. So when you talk about being blessed to those people, that's where the Lord is taking care of them. The Lord put into people like Jacob and Isaac, Abraham, patriarchs, he folks into place, Joseph, so we can see the blessing that owed upon people. And you know, they have great times or hard times. Remember, was fleeing his life. He felt like time, and I'm sure his life. You know, how can Jacob rest when he's fleeing his life? But the Lord out from his journey from fleeing, he says, I'm going to bless you. He told him, and the Lord to him all the way the time he was with Laban, he was to him. Blessed him. When he went back to Israel, because that's what the Lord came to was Israel, back into. But when he went back to make his brother, which he did, told him, said, you know, I don't want you anymore. That's basically, of course, Jacob kind of still himself from it, but he was blessed from the time that he laid down. And even then, though, you see ups and the downs. Imagine 7 years that somebody promised you. Find out that they cheated you. Worked another 7 years, and then let me go and you know, in my flock that, and still was such a man that it was still of him, so that when he left, he didn't go to and say, "Hey, Pop," because he was afraid Pop would pop him. So anyway, at the night, and 3 days later, when Laban found out, he went after him, but the Lord told him. It's another blessing that he put on Jacob. He told him in a before he got up with Jacob. He said, "Don't do any harm." You understood who the Lord was, and so he didn't, and he told Jacob that. He said, "I'm not here to do any harm." He was looking at idols that Rachel for his accommodation and those kind of. I don't know why she doesn't. I mean, in the Bible after that, but evidently she believed in them too. And of course, Jacob said, "Find them. I don't care." He was all the way through, and we're blessed. Just turn around for God. All you got to do is turn around. He's there waiting. And he was there with Jacob the whole 20 years, been in Syria, being really a slave to Laban. And when he left, he had. So let's close in prayer. Lord, as we look at us as the world, and just ask that you come in and come into the world, and Lord, that we look to you, we turn to you for solutions to our problems, turn to you for and that, Lord, for your blessings, so that